It's time now for our business update, and I'm joined by Yuka Roye here in the studio, starting with this global trade treaty that Donald Trump had said he would not do. Now it seems like Washington might be reconsidering. That's the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Trade Partnership. It's a massive trade deal that was signed back in 2016 by 12 countries that border the Pacific Ocean, aimed at boosting trade and countering China's influence in the region. But Donald Trump called it a disaster and pulled the US out of the deal as soon as he took office. Now, as his trade battle with Beijing escalates, he seems willing to reverse that decision. Selena Sykes has this report.
An unexpected U-turn on a deal he once called disastrous. US President Donald Trump said he will reconsider the Trans-Pacific Partnership, a free trade pact with primarily Asia-Pacific countries. An idea already floated back in January at the World Economic Forum in Davos.
Well, the president has made clear in Davos and before Davos that he was open to discussions about TPP. This is simply reinforcing existing views that he had expressed earlier.
Negotiated under Barack Obama, the multinational trade deal involved 12 countries that border the Pacific Ocean, including Canada, Australia, Mexico, Singapore and Japan, with an annual GDP of nearly $28 trillion. That represents 40% of world trade. The pact aimed to deepen economic ties between these nations by reducing tariffs, and also wanted to counter China's rising economic clout in the region. But the US never made it to the negotiating table. Shortly after taking office, Trump signed an executive order, pulling out of the deal, a promise he made during his election campaign. Trump has now instructed senior aides to weigh up joining TPP, but said in a tweet he was only willing to reopen talks if he could secure a better deal. As fears of an escalating trade war with China grow, the president may now see the deal as an effective way to put pressure on Beijing.
And we've got some reactions from Japan, the country Trump seemed to take aim at in his latest tweet that we saw in that report. Trade Minister Toshimitsu Motegi welcomed the reversal as a sign that Trump recognizes the importance of TPP. He warned, though, that one can't make an omelette without breaking eggs. Take a listen.
This agreement was forged, carefully taking into account different interests of participating nations. It's high standard and well balanced, and is also very delicate. Like something made of glass, it will be difficult to take only parts of it and reopen negotiations, or change only parts of it.
Now, as trade tension escalates between the US and China, both countries are continuing to negotiate behind the scenes, and that's according to the head of the OECD. This comes as China's global trade balance swung to a rare deficit in March, as exports shrank 2.7% from a year earlier. But its surplus with the United States stood at $15.4 billion. Trump is demanding that Beijing take steps to narrow the gap. Washington says trade deficit with China stood at almost $380 billion last year. Now let's take a look at the markets now. Here in Europe, major indices were all up at the start of the session just a short while ago, as fears over a possible US strike on Syria eased. As you can see, modestly up across the board there. Earlier in Asia, it was a mixed picture, with trade uncertainty that we discussed weighing on some Chinese shares. Turning to the auto industry now, Volkswagen has appointed a new chief executive and announced a massive restructuring plan. Herbert Diess, known for his cost-cutting measures when he was with BMW, takes over from Matthias Mueller. The leadership change comes as the German carmaker looks to move past the diesel emissions scandal towards more self-driving and electric cars. Volkswagen shares have risen more than 1% following that announcement. Meanwhile, Germany's environment minister warns the government should not rule out requiring retrofits for diesel cars with higher pollution levels. Svenja Schulz criticised the German transport minister, who earlier was too optimistic when he said that the country could meet emissions targets without imposing driving bans or ordering refits. Earlier this week, Chancellor Angela Merkel played down the possibility of forcing car makers to make expensive modifications to diesel car exhaust systems. And finally from me, a costly mistake by an employee cost Samsung some $140 billion. It happened last Friday when a staff at the Samsung Securities accidentally transferred more than 30 times the number of the company's outstanding shares. Samsung was supposed to give $2.8 billion worth of shares to its employees at 1,001 won per share. But the staff entered shares instead of won into his computer, sending 2.8 billion shares worth 112 trillion won, we're getting lost in the numbers there, into employee accounts. It took 37 minutes for the firm to realize the error and halt trading by its employees. The firm apologized to shareholders.
The point is, it was costly, right?
It was
Fat finger, very costly mistake.
Fat finger, costly mistake.
Lesson to our viewers, proofread what you type. Thank you, Yuko Yukoroi, with the roundup of the business news. She'll still be